Hi, it's the 3-Minute Sociologist again, and today I'd like to look at stratification. Now, it turns out that sociologists spend a lot of time on stratification. It really gets their interest. Let's take a look at three things. What do we mean by stratification? How do you layer society after all? And then thirdly, what do we mean by life chances and the impact of stratification? Let's take those one by one. Well, first of all, what do we mean by stratification, and so what? You've probably been in a geography or a geology class, and you saw layers of the Earth's crust. You realize that going down through the Earth, you see these layers that, well, at least in the pictures, they look homogeneous, like everything is the same. Well, in reality, if you got up close, you'd find that most of the stuff is generally the same, but there's other stuff mixed in. You know what? That's a pretty good metaphor for a layer in society. And since stratification means making layers, it makes pretty good sense that if we can figuratively, not literally, layer people, we can make some general statements about how they act. And that's really what we care about. It's really a metaphor. In other words, social layering isn't literal, but it really is figuratively important and powerful. So how can we stratify society? How can we determine what layers we should be looking at? Well, the reality is that layering can happen in a lot of different ways. Sociologists like to look at social class all the time, but the other side of it is that we can layer society by gender, by sexuality or sexual preference, by age, race, ethnicity. We can layer society a lot of different ways. The only precursor for layering these things is to think, well, hey, how are people different after I layer them? Can I make some sort of generalization about how they act, live, or think as a result of these layering processes? Is layering actually something that's real, or is it just sort of made up? Well, the way we find out is that we compare the layers and see if lifestyles or access to opportunity or power, if they're different by layer. If they are, then we start thinking, hey, look, society may very well be layered this way. And then let's think about stratification and life chances. Now, let's think what we're talking about here. Every individual is different. Every individual has a lot of different possibilities, probabilities, and likelihoods in his or her life. You can make a lot of choices for yourself. But the question here is, how are social differences imposed? In other words, does layering have any impact on you as an individual? Well, sociologists think it does. Not every individual will be impacted the same way, but where you are in the various layers may have some impact on your life chances. Think about that for a minute. What is a life chance? Well, it turns out that life chances in some respects are like rolling dice. The point I guess I'd make is, though, however, these are not legitimate dice. Not legitimate dice. And as a result, it turns out sometimes these dice are loaded. In other words, some people have a likelihood or a greater likelihood of getting a 6, whereas others might have a likelihood of getting a 1. Part of that is not a function of being good or bad or evil, but rather a function of how society is structured. So when people in groups have these differences because of stratification with respect to social class or age or race, their likelihood of improving their lives may be in some ways detrimental. And then we start talking about moving between layers. If we can move between layers, we talk about this as social mobility. Now you remember the concept of ascribed and achieved statuses. Some things, like gathering more education in an open class society, lets us move between layers. Other things, like gender or perhaps age, has some arbitrary impact on our ability to move. And it's pretty much a function of how that age or that gender is seen in that society at that time. Well, there wasn't much here, and it's a short one, but I hope you'll enjoy this interaction on social stratification. Onward. Thanks for your time.
Class matters. You probably already know that, and not only because you're a student of sociology, but because you're a person who lives in a society. But do you know how much it really matters? Social class is a huge determinant of many of the most fundamental aspects of modern life, from your education to your beliefs, as well as your values, your occupation, your income, and not only how you live, but also how you die. So let's talk about how class plays out in the lives of Americans today. Class starts to matter at the very beginning of your life. Let's take a simple example. Suppose you're a parent and your kid absolutely refuses to eat broccoli. How do you respond? Do you make them clear their plate and say that they shouldn't waste food? Or do you allow them to make decisions for themselves about what they eat? Now, you may be thinking, what? How does eating broccoli have anything to do with class? But how parents from different walks of life approach parenting can differ a lot by class, as American sociologist Annette Lareau found in her research on parenting styles. Let's go to the thought bubble to look at how social class can affect what kind of parent you are or what kind you have. In the 1990s, Lareau's research focused on observing families of elementary school students from upper middle class and working class backgrounds. In doing this, she realized that parents had very different approaches to how they educated and disciplined their kids. She found that upper middle class parents tend to be very involved in their kids' social and academic lives. Think scheduled play dates, after school activities, checking their homework assignments every night. The stereotype of a suburban helicopter mom isn't too far from the mark for some of these families. By contrast, working class parents who were more likely to have less time and money to devote to these activities were more likely to be hands-off in structuring their kids' free time. These kids might be more likely to be playing with whoever is around their neighborhood than going on play dates. Working class parents also tend to put a greater emphasis on obedience and discipline compared to their upper middle class counterparts, Lareau found. While a working class parent might tell their kids to eat their broccoli because I said so, an upper middle class parent is more likely to talk through decisions with their children in an effort to encourage autonomy. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So yes, a toddler's distaste for broccoli and their parents' reaction to it can tell us something about class.
Magandang hapon po, Ginoong Carlos.
Magandang hapon naman.
May mga katanungan lang po ako sa inyo. Ilan po ba anak niyo sa abroad?
6.
Nasaan po sila?
2 yung nasa Japan, 4 yung nasa Amerika.
Lahat po ba sila nagtatrabaho?
Tatrabaho, lahat sila may trabaho.
Hindi niyo po mamasamain. Magkano po remittance niyo? Monthly.
All in all napunta sa akin 1,000 a month. $1,000 a month.
Ano po yung mga pinagkakagasto sa inyo?
Wala, yung mga gamit, yung mga gastusin sa bahay. Meralco, Maynila, telepono, tapos mga bilihin dito.
Pero po, sa kasalukuyan, meron po ba kayong mga nai-impok na pera o na-save sa bangko?
Meron.
Tanong ko lang po kung meron kayong health insurance.
Meron.
Sa kasalukuyan po, meron po ba kayong sakit?
Wala. Healthy ako, malakas ako.
Sige po, Ginoong Carlos, maraming salamat po.
Thank you rin.
Gandang gabi, Mare. Kumusta na? Gusto ko lang kamustahin kayo ngayong mga panahon na to. Mahirap na. Pwede mo bang sabihin yung
Ngayon, mahal. Tapos, yung bigas namin, magkano pa ang binibili namin tagtanong 50 plus.
Pero maayos naman na nakakain ng mga anak mo.
Nakakain naman sa tatlo beses sa isang araw. Kaso lang, yung 1,000 mo, ubos agad. Kanina, ngiti pa naman.
Kumusta naman, Mars, yung mga pang-araw-araw mo gastusin?
Ay, yung sahod na Arnel kulang. May ano pa, bayaran sa bahay. Bigas. Oh?
Kumusta naman yung pag-aaral ng panganay mo? Okay naman.
Araw-araw magagastos ka ng ano, may hingi.
Project.
Project pa.
Ito po ang bunsong anak nila. Ilan taon na siya? 2. Oh, si papa mo. Nagtatrabaho si papa mo. Nagko-construction si papa mo.
May pagkain.
Opo. So, yung mga gastusin ngayon, sapat-sapat lang, minsan kulang pa. Oo. Kaya kailangan doble kayo.
Gusto ko lang magtrabaho na rin. Mag-anuhan man lang kaming dalawa nga.
Kailangan.
Hirap sa gastusin na rin.
Oo. Maraming salamat, Mari. Bye-bye na, bye-bye.
Babay na.
Bye-bye ka na. Bye-bye. Bye-bye po.